I remember grinding through tutorials for months, thinking I was getting smarter every day. But when I finally opened Unity to make my own game, nothing. I completely froze. All that learning just vanished away when I had a blank project in front of me. And that was the day I realized the hard truth. Watching doesn't make you a game dev, but building does. And that's the first thing you need to realize to increase your productivity in game development. And that's that you learn by building and not by watching. So right now you probably have the mindset that you learn by watching tutorials. Like you watch these tutorials and you follow along, and a lot of people right now will say, well Kevin, I do them on my own screen, so I'm watching as well as I'm building. So I'm building, am I good? Kevin, am I please? But in reality, no, you're not. Watching a tutorial that's basically a step-by-step guide on how to do something, that's not an exception here. I'm talking about all tutorials in general. Tutorials that give you a recipe about what to do, something that doesn't give you any problems to solve, something that doesn't require anything of you, doesn't require anything of your brain. You don't solve your problem solving. That's what I'm talking about there. And also it can be AI, it can be text, whatever. But for now, let's focus on tutorials. So let me ask you, the last tutorial that you watched, would you be able to replicate it? Would you be able to replicate every single thing inside of that tutorial in your own game engine with no help? Would you be able to do it? Let's say the video was, for example, making a player movement system. If I turned off your internet, gave you a blank project, would you be able to do it? If the answer is no, which it 99% likely it will, then you probably understand it right now. And that's because the tutorial, it gives you a concept overview, sure you can understand and follow along and you feel like you understand what the person is talking about in the tutorials when they're explaining, and you feel like that's something that you should remember. But you don't actually learn to use it practically, and that's a problem. Because when we don't learn to use it practically, when we use it practically ourselves, when we find the solution ourselves, we struggle with it, we use our brains, it's kind of hard. That's when we actually figure out how to do it practically. That's by actually doing it practically. We learn by building, we learn by doing, not by watching and consuming. Just a quick example. When you learn to ride your bike, do you think you would ever learn to ride your bike if you didn't ride your bike, you just watch someone else? No, you wouldn't. That's the same with game development. When you're watching tutorials, you're just watching someone else make games and you're expecting yourself to be able to make games after watching it. That's not how our brain is, not how the universe is, not how anything works. You've got everything completely wrong. You didn't learn to ride your bike by watching someone else. You learned to ride your bike by actually doing the hard thing. You started to try to ride your bike, got your mom or dad to push you. They pushed you, you fell obviously. You fell a lot of times actually. You got a scratch on your leg and eventually you got it. You learned to ride your bike. That's the same with game development. We start small and we need to experiment, we need to do hard things, learn ourselves, not just do these shortcuts by just immediately going into a shortcut, Googling, oh, how do I do this? Because I immediately didn't know how to do it. That's not how you learn. You learn by struggling with things, on purpose restricting your information, and actually building. You don't learn by watching tutorials. So I have an action step written down for you. The next time you're working on a project, I don't want you to watch a tutorial, a guide, ask AI for something. What I want you to do is think of one little small, extremely small experiment that you could do within maybe 2 hours. And I want you to just do that with no Google, not even Google, no external resources. Just you thinking, using your brain, using the knowledge that you have. Might even be extremely small, and it might humble you because you've gone from making Minecraft by watching a 20-hour tutorial or whatever. I fell for that mistake too. Whatever, to making a very simple movement system. So obviously it's going to humble you, but I promise you this is going to change your learning mindset from being a consumer to actually a game developer. So what I recommend, if you aren't going to do this after this video, set a reminder on your phone, set a reminder so that you remember it next time. Work on one small experiment and limit your access to information. So set a reminder on your phone right now, do that, and we can move on to the next point, which will just save you from being stuck. This point is so extremely important. And that's my second point, momentum over perfection. Like to learn faster, build better games, to get results, be more productive, we need to get momentum. But right now, if you like related to what I talked about with tutorials and so on, then you're probably stuck in what I call the restart spiral. And the restart spiral, that's basically where your game dev journey constantly resets, and it's basically just caused by a lack of momentum. So let me explain that. The restart spiral is, listen closely, that's where you start a new project. So you start a new project, you get excited, you get happy. Like obviously it's very easy to start a new project and it's fun. So you start a new project, then you watch tutorials, you watch guides, you ask AI, you do all these things because you don't have the skills to make that project your own. So obviously you seek a lot of these external resources. And since obviously you can't make a game with just watching tutorials, then you get stuck, you quit the project, and then you restart. So you start a new project. And the worst of them all, you didn't learn anything because, as we talked about before, you don't learn from tutorials, or especially AI. You don't learn from these. You don't learn from these things. So that's the restart spiral. If that sounded familiar, listen closely. The problem is that you currently have no momentum because you don't know how to build things yourself. So the only thing you're doing is to watch tutorials, you watch other people make projects, and so on and so on. You have this belief that you're not good enough to make something yourself, and to make something and learn something, you have to watch tutorials. But as we talked about, we learn by building, not by watching. So what I want you to do, this also comes down to that like action step I talked about before. That's by starting with just something extremely small and ugly. And it's not going to feel good. I know you're going to want to do something bigger. You want to make like Skyrim as like your experiment. Don't do that. Think of the simplest thing you could possibly do. Do that. Literally, the simplest thing you could possibly do without AI, tutorials, whatever. The simplest thing. Whatever you could do. And it's probably not going to be that big because you've been stuck in this tutorial hell, you've been stuck in this restart spiral. But the only way to get out is to just drop your ego, start with something small, build up wins, build up the momentum, and you can gradually increase from there. And inside of Smart Indie, I also give you a 60-day blueprint to break the restart spiral and actually finish your first game, step by step. And a personal guarantee I will make is that you'll get my personal help if you join Smart Indie right now by clicking the first link in the description, and I'll help you with whatever you need. So you can just join, I'll send you a message, and we can walk from there. I guarantee, just like the other students inside of Smart Indie, you will get my personal help, and it's going to take you from being stuck to actually making your first game. So you can click the first link in the description now if that sounded interesting. However, there is something that I just had to fit it in this video because it's so important, and it almost also made me like quit my first game. It like almost made me not finish it, and it even made me like waste weeks, even months maybe. It's a huge thing that you need to remember when you're like making experiments and you're gradually becoming better. This thing is going to be extremely, extremely important, and that's planning. Planning will literally save you and your game dev journey. Every minute you spend planning is 10 minutes saved at the later stages of your game. Like seriously, you could spend 10 months making a game if you didn't plan anything. You can make that in 1 month if you just planned effectively. Seriously, it's not an understatement. Planning will literally save your game. It will save your first prototypes. Maybe not like on the large scale like your first game will, because your first game is going to be bigger than the prototypes that you're making, that you're going to make in the start, like the small projects. But when you're coming to making your first game, which inside of Smart Indie, our goal is to make our first game within only 60 days. When you come to that point, it's very essential that you plan. Like the bigger the project, the more you have to plan. So it's very important that you plan out your first game very well. And for this, I don't disallow cheating. I think that's a good thing to use AI to like help you with the planning and architecture because it's so critical. We don't want to quit our first game just because we didn't like know how to plan, and it's very hard to know how to plan when we've never made any game before. So what I recommend is that you just ask AI. It's a very good use case for AI, and it's not going to destroy your progress to just ask it for some help with planning. It's a very, very good use case, which I also recommend because like in short, if you don't plan, basically your game will just become messy, and it's going to be very, very hard to complete because all these systems, they're like dependent on each other, and you don't know what to do next, and your game even becomes worse. It just becomes a spaghetti mess. So I don't recommend not planning. Planning will literally save your game. And to learn effective planning, you can watch my videos or you can join Smart Indie to get the 60-day blueprint. But to like plan the general outline of the systems and all of these things, I recommend that you use myro.com, because there you can get like flowcharts and you can like connect and see how the different systems connect to each other. So I think that's very awesome. Whilst in Trello, you can specify the specific tasks, and you can use Notion for like a general overview of how your game is going to be, like the features and all of these things. And inside of Smart Indie, you also get a Notion and Trello template, obviously. So if you join, you get access to that as well. That's just a little helpful bonus that we have inside for our students. So that's the third point. And the fourth point now is going to be something that I've personally seen people struggle with inside of Smart Indie. And that's the question of using resources. When do we use AI? When do we use Google? When do we use free assets? And even like questions that get you to feel overwhelmed. Like, should I do 2D or 3D? Let's answer everything now. The first thing I will say, that using AI before you actually released even one single game, especially if you're making experiments, is with 95% likely going to destroy your progress. AI is just going to give you way too much information. It's going to give you much more information than you actually need and that you should get. So instead of learning and doing the hard things, building your own things like we talked about, what AI is going to do is that it's going to give you so much information that you're not going to think yourself, and it's going to make like a game that's not at your skill level. And basically the experimenting, the building, everything is wasted. Like, you could basically just watch tutorials instead, and it would be even better than using AI. So I don't recommend that. Like, a general rule of thumb is that in the beginning, you should actually restrict your information, because sure, you could get all of this information, you could like try to know everything, figure everything out, but you'll just feel overwhelmed. You can probably relate to this. At least the students inside of Smart Indie, they can relate to this, that you can't like learn everything. So what I recommend, restrict information, try to learn like one thing at a time, one implementation at a time. So for example, listen closely now. When you're experimenting and you want a new implementation, like something that you have to implement, for example, you've never made like jumping before, for example, like jumping in a game. Let's say you've never done that before, then obviously we can't like try to think of how the programming language was made to like jump. So obviously we need to search online to like figure out how to jump. So what we're going to do is how to jump in Unity, for example, 2D or 3D. We're going to search for that, and we're going to find the implementations, and we're going to do that on Google, not on YouTube, because that's easy. We're going to use Google and it gives us answer, but we actually need to think and figure out how to implement that answer into our own game. So like as we said, this is not watching, this is building, because it's not just giving us the answer that we can copy and paste. We need to figure out, use our own brain on how to actually implement the things that we found on Google. So I recommend that you search for like these specific things, like how to jump, for example. That's a good thing to search for, and you can find the implementations. It's basically just one line, rb.addForce or rigidbody.addForce. But what you're not going to search for is like these general things, like how to make a jumping player simulator. Don't search for that. Search for like the specific things. Just don't use Google or AI or YouTube as a shortcut. Use it as a tool and a teacher. When you're stuck on something for like 15-30 minutes plus, then sure, go ahead, try to find a solution online, because then you very much can't do it. Or if you're trying to learn something new, then obviously, as I said, you can't try to like think of the solution on how the programming language was made. So obviously you need to like search online to find out how you are going to do the thing that you need to do. And when it comes to like 2D or 3D, basically it doesn't matter. If you want to make 2D games in the future, do 2D. If you want to make 3D games, do 3D. As long as it fits your skill level, like you're not going to do like some crazy experiment in 3D, then obviously 3D is totally fine. And also when it comes to free assets, go ahead and use them. It's a skill in its own to use them. So use free assets. I recommend that. I recommend that, like importing them, using them correctly, adding animations, whatever. These things, it's a skill. So I recommend you do them. It's not going to hurt your progress to use assets. That's everything I had for this video. Just remember, next time you work on game dev, do one small experiment and the ball is going to be rolling. So join Smart Indie and set a reminder to do that next time. I'll see you.